Hayes FM's Community Matters Show with Mark Ciccone and Dino Klein, bringing your community together with everyday stories and coronavirus news. Every Wednesday from 1pm to 3pm on 91.8 Hayes FM. Please note, all the opinions you hear are of our guests and not the opinions of Hayes FM.
Talk, conversation, debate.
91.8 Hayes FM.
Now we have got our guest who's going to be joining us today from the Carers Trust. Just going to tell you a bit more about them. Today we're joined with Sally Chandler, who's the Chief Executive of the Carers Trust in Hillingdon, formerly known as the Hillingdon Carers Trust. And one of the charities that are valuable and offer valuable support to our community. So we're joined in the studio by Sally. Hello, Sally. Have we got Sally in the studio?
Thank you for having me, Mark.
You're welcome. We've got a few gremlins here today, but yes, we'll get past that. So, Sally, can you tell us, tell our listeners a bit more about your charity and the role within the community?
Certainly. We support unpaid family carers, and I think sometimes people get mixed up between care workers who are paid to look after people and those family members that give up huge amounts of time to care for a family member who's sick. So we support those unpaid people to help them better manage their caring role and to mitigate some of the difficulties that can produce. So the carers in Hillingdon, there are around 30,000 people providing care and support to people who wouldn't manage without their help.
Yeah.
Wow. Good afternoon, Sally. It's Dino here. For those listening and don't know much about carers, what is a carer, and define the role of a carer for people listening who maybe don't know?
Certainly, and that's a very good question, Dino, because there are so many types of caring that it does confuse people. And one of our biggest challenges is helping people to understand that they actually are a carer. So there might be a parent carer who has a disabled child who will have a lifelong commitment to looking after that child. Caring can be very long-term in that respect, or it can be very short-term. So somebody has an acute illness or a stroke, and they have to care for however long that recovery period takes. So lots of different caring roles. It might be dementia in later life, so a husband or a wife caring for each other as they get older or develop other long-term conditions. So we have children as young as 5, so we work with young carers and young adult carers who might be caring for a parent or a sibling who wouldn't manage as well. So it's a difficult one because there's no snappy definition of what a carer is. But basically, it's a family member or a neighbour or a friend providing care and support to somebody who couldn't manage their daily lives without that support.
Now, you say you provide support for those caring for others. What type of support does your charity offer? Or do they offer? Do they provide drop-in days and stuff like that?
Yes, we have a whole range of... We actually have over 100 free services for carers, so I couldn't possibly give you all the details. But broken down roughly, I mean, obviously information and advice is really important. So helping carers to find the help they need, the support they need. That might be a social services care package, or it might be something as simple as social opportunities, working, meeting with other carers, which we call peer support, so learning from each other. But we also have a whole range of health and wellbeing services. So carers notoriously don't look after their own health. They're worried about, leaving the person they care for. They don't necessarily go to GP appointments. So we have health MOT days, we have exercise programs, we have all sorts of opportunities to learn new skills, but also training in the art of caring, if you like. So a nurse, for example, will train for many years to be able to provide some of the very practical care that people are doing in the home day to day. So obviously looking after your back if you're moving somebody, managing a wheelchair, all these skills that carers need and are expected to have but don't necessarily have. We also have lots of social opportunities, particularly young carers become quite socially isolated. They can be bullied at school. So it's about giving them a childhood away from their caring role as well. So a whole range of different opportunities and activities, as well as the information and advice.
Wow, that's quite a lot. I mean, I currently care for two people. I care for my brother who's autistic and my cousin who's autistic, and I know how difficult it can be, and especially when you need a breather. You know, and you really do need a breather. I mean, most people think because it's family they can cope and they're okay, but there does come a time when you do need to lean on people, and I know that firsthand. But I understand that caring for others obviously can be from all ages. I mean, sometimes you can get a child caring for an adult, and that's now quite common. How old are the people, you know, an average age of the people that you're finding that use your service? Is it a totally broad spectrum?
It is from 5 years old to, I think our oldest is about 101.
Wow.
So you can be a carer at any age.
Yeah.
And Dino, you make a really good point about the respite, just having a break from that caring role. So the services we deliver are also delivered in partnership with lots of other charities. And under the contract that we have with Hillingdon Borough Council, a carer can potentially be eligible for up to 4 hours free respite care in the home. So somebody who's a trained care worker coming and just giving you a chance to have a bath, have a sleep, get out and about, you know, get your hair done, whatever. So the respite piece is very important. But age-wise, we do work with children as young as 5, some of them who have an incredibly high caring role, which is, you know, just amazing. And we also see at the other end of the age spectrum what we call mutual caring situations, where both partners are potentially elderly, frail, getting some of those conditions that are associated with ageing, and very fragile because, you know, it only takes one of them to get unwell, and the whole caring situation breaks down, and everything in between. I would say predominantly, probably about 60% of the people we work with are over 30, but we have about 1,200 young carers and young adult carers. So, you know, quite a lot going on. Yeah.
Incredible.
Do you have lots of charities you work with to provide respite care, like a little short holidays and stuff like that for your service users?
I mean, respite's used very broadly as a term. So for me, respite is that carer having time away from that caring role. Now, that might be that they want to do an art class or pursue a hobby that they had prior to their caring role, or that they've not been able to pursue. So we have lots of short break activities like art groups, and we've got Spanish classes going on. We have pamper days. We have therapy, so you can come and have a massage not currently because of the COVID restrictions, but normally. So you know, just a break for yourself and some time for yourself. We have lots of wellbeing workshops on how to look after yourself and how to learn strategies for coping with the stresses of caring. So there's a whole range of ways that we provide that break. But for me, it's just about having that time away from the caring role. So we have we work as part of Hillingdon Carers Partnership. So we work with the local organisation Hillingdon Mind, who provide mental health carer support. Alzheimer's Society staff are based with us at the Carers Centre, and they provide significant support for people living with dementia and their families. We also subcontract, so we provide the respite care through Harlington Care, and Harlington Hospice provide our therapies. But in addition to that, I think you mentioned, Dino, you had a brother with autism. There are specialist charities in the borough, like Hillingdon Autistic Care and Support. So what we would do is, once we've done a carer's assessment, is make sure the right services are wrapped around that carer. So it might be that 3 organisations are involved in their support, you know, or it might be that just they access our services. So there's a very vibrant, well-funded voluntary sector in Hillingdon. We're very lucky, and we will find the right support for you.
Wow.
It sounds very, very challenging, your roles that you have there. And I'm just going to take a short break. We'll be right back, and we'll talk to Sally a bit more about the charity.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram.
91.8 Hayes FM.
So today, joined in the studio, we have Sally Chandler, who is the Chief Executive of the Carers Trust in Hillingdon, talking about the charity in general, how they provide support, and lots of ranges of different things they supply their service users. Sally, do you have paid carers that you send out into the community?
Paid carers?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one of the services we provide. So Hillingdon Care are one of our key partners, and they provide what's called the Carers Short Break service. So they will assess a carer. If they need that break, they can have, as I say, up to 4 hours free respite. And respite in that instance means a paid care worker who will take on the role of that carer whilst that carer goes off and does whatever they want to do. So that might be oxygen therapy, peg feeding, personal care. So they're very highly trained care workers who do that. So that's the only instance where we have paid workers going out to support carers. The staff team here do provide all the other services. You mentioned short holidays, and we also create other partnerships with national organisations. So there's a national organisation called Carefree Breaks, and they are given all the empty Airbnb hotel rooms, holiday lets, and we can provide a free holiday for a carer. They have to make their own way there, and it has to be without the person they care for. But so we can access hardship grants. Many carers are living on reduced incomes. So if they need equipment for the home, we have organisations that we can go to get a bit of funding. During the lockdown, we provided a huge amount of laptops and tablets for young carers to help them with their studies. So we'll find a way. If there's a need, we'll do our very best to find a way. And boroughs choose to support carers very differently. In Hillingdon, we have incredibly generous funding from the council. And we bring in lots of funding. So in the last 4 years, we've brought in about £1.3 million worth of new funding.
Wow. And
that's for services carers tell us they want. So it is different from area to area.
Yeah.
Carers Trust, which is our national body, and the website is just www.carers.org. You can put in your postcode and find your nearest carer service. So that's the best way, if you're not in Hillingdon, of making contact.
If you can send us that information, we'll put that onto our webpage as well. So if anyone's missed that, we can put that on the webpage so you can catch up with that a bit later on. Back to you, Dana.
Certainly.
So services you offer to clients, other sort of services that people wouldn't ordinarily think about. For instance, legal advice, social care, all of those things. You do as well, or do you refer them on to somebody else? How's that?
We have an advice team ourselves, which is 3 strong. Most of the work they do is around carer entitlement, so applying for carer-related benefits. Just to put that in context, in the last 2 years, they've brought nearly £1 million of carer benefits, sort of, maximising household incomes in Hillingdon. They can give advice on other things like council tax breaks, blue badges, etc. But things like debt advice are more specialist, and we would pass that on to people that are better able. But we do have fabulous support from IBB solicitors in Uxbridge who do monthly carer advice clinics. So if you wanted a free half-hour advice session on powers of attorney or inheritance tax or how to pay for care, then we can probably get you a free appointment with IBB.
You see, because that's been quite crucial for me, getting a power of attorney over my cousin, because there's been nobody else. So that's where, like you say, with things like Carers Trust, that's been really important to me. So if there is anyone out there that needs that or is listening, these are the people to go to. And I don't think a lot of people realise that information is available via things like Carers Trusts.
No, and we have an advice centre on Uxbridge High Street opposite Tesco. You can drop in any time. Obviously, we're not having drop-ins at the moment, but we do have a whole range of fact sheets, and about 10 or 12 of those fact sheets are called legal matters. They were produced for us by IBB solicitors. They're all on our website, and as I said to Mark, I'll send the contact details so they, people can have those afterwards. But we do have a whole range of information around the legal elements of caring, as well as the practical challenges, day-to-day challenges as well.
Now, you work with quite a few charities, because under the umbrella of your establishment, you have H for All, Mind, is it? Oh, no, Dash. So do you work closely with those as well?
Yeah, this confuses people. So there's two different partnerships. There's the Hillingdon Carers Partnership, which is totally focused on supporting carers. That's largely under contract to the council. But 5 of the larger Hillingdon charities set up H for All about 5-6 years ago, 2014. We are one of those 5 sovereign charities. And the idea about us working, so we work with Dash, Mind, Arlington Hospice, Age UK. The idea of that was that we wanted to have better coordination of charity support in Hillingdon, so we don't replicate each other's services, that we're working together to fill the gaps. What we also do is have shared, what I call backroom services. So we have a shared finance service, HR, and what that enables us to do is save a lot of money and push more of our resources to the front line for direct support to residents. So H for All is very much part of on my radar. It's my second job, if you like. So I run the Carers Partnership, but I'm very committed to developing H for All, and we do a lot of health provision for residents.
During the COVID-19, when it all started up, H for All, we must have plugged that so much.
We did,
because it was such a lifeline for people. I mean, there's people who listen to this show who probably don't have a community they can turn to, so this is their lifeline. So we provided all that information for H for All, so that people can contact and get help where they're needed.
A lot of people were really, really thankful for that one day. It was quite amazing.
We worked very closely with the council on that, so we did a lot of emergency food parcels, medication collections, etc. So the COVID crisis has been a big challenge for all of us. So yes, we supported H for All hugely, and I actually lent them a member of staff, and we worked with the council to do that. But obviously we had to respond to our own service users, our carers, and it was very much I don't know if anyone's heard of Maslow's hierarchy of need, but basically in the first couple of weeks we were meeting emergency needs like food, like medicines, like how do we make sure we can live and function. But as the lockdown progressed, the team have become incredibly innovative, and they've started to look at other needs like social contact and belonging needs, and all those things that we take for granted in life. So we now have a significant online offer. We do all sorts of Zoom workshops. We have parties for the young people online. We've got a whole range. In fact, we've just got a newsletter out. So if anybody wanted our newsletter of all the opportunities that are coming up, they can just ring us. So again, I'll give you the telephone number, Mark, for the website. But we've done very, very well. What we've also done during the crisis, because obviously IT is a barrier for some people, we had our IT volunteer and our IT manager supporting carers to join Zoom exercise classes or Spanish classes or whatever. So we can actually physically talk you through that to get onto those sessions. Yeah. But for people that genuinely didn't want to access services online, we've also got a whole range of telephone support groups. So it's just it's a conference number that you dial in, and then you can have chats with other carers and things. So we've tried to cater for all needs really during the crisis.
Now, obviously, during the COVID, like you say, you've had to physically think on your feet to try and get services to people, whereas obviously before it was physical. So it's been quite a challenge, I would imagine, to introduce other services where you could still interact with people, like what you mentioned.
I mean, we've already talked about the nature of caring and how important that time away is. And without physically leaving the house and going to a carer cafe or an exercise class, there isn't that respite that you talked about, Dino, that break away from that caring role. So that has been a big challenge for us. We've seen some positives. So we moved our yoga and chair-based exercise online, and actually that's grown significantly, and we've got the people they care for joining in with that. So some of the things have been very positive, but other ways, carers are kind of stuck 24 hours a day, in the house. So we've introduced care calling. So that's members of the team and a team of volunteers that we're training, just ringing, touching base with you, having a chat, all social stuff. And you can have that daily or weekly. Because that's proven so popular, we are extending that beyond COVID, because carers just love knowing that someone's going to come on the phone and just have a chat and be interested in them. The other thing we introduced was emergency planning. So when you are responsible for somebody and they're dependent on you, what happens if you get ill, whether it's COVID or not? So we've got emergency plans that we can work through with you so that if anything happens, we've got a plan in place for that. So we've introduced a few new opportunities, I guess, during COVID, but it has been challenging.
Now, I've got to ask you this. Finally, how can people get in contact with you? What's your social media and things like that? I mean, your telephone number.
Okay. So we have recently changed our name. You mentioned at the beginning, Mark, we were Hillingdon Carers. We're now Carers Trust Hillingdon. It's only a name change. All our services remain the same. But our new website is www.carerstrusthillingdon.org. So that's fairly straightforward. There's a whole lot of information on there. Our telephone number is 01895 811 206, and you can pick up the phone and we can get any information out to you. You're going to ask me for things like Twitter handles, and I have no idea.
I'll see if I can find them.
It's nothing to me. We do have a Facebook page, but what I'll do is send you those, Mark, and then they can perhaps be put on the website. I'm a bit of a dinosaur myself recently.
So finally, you changed your name to the Carers Trust Hillingdon, and now you've just had a big rebrand. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that just before we finish?
Yeah. So earlier Dino mentioned he had support from carers in Surrey. So we are actually part of a network of carers organisations across the country. I think there are 141 in England, and our umbrella body is called Carers Trust. Now, being part of that has been hugely beneficial to carers in Hillingdon because it brings in a lot of new learning. They offer small grants, so we have a lot of grants from them. I can mix with all the chief execs across London to share ideas and to ask them questions. So we get huge benefits. We have central access to things like HR advice, cheaper insurances, pension schemes, that sort of thing. So we've been a member of Carers Trust for a very long time. What we wanted to do was better reflect that in our name locally because of the huge advantages we get. So the rebrand was very much about reflecting the fact that we are part of something bigger, and that it's not just what you see. There's a whole body of stuff behind us that will be brought into play in the borough. So that was the reasoning behind it. It's also given us a chance to refresh our logo and our website and all our signage in the shop and stuff. So been a big piece of work. It also kept at least 3 staff off furlough during the lockdown as well because they had a lot of work to do in that respect. So we were able to get through the whole COVID without having to furlough staff. So but that wasn't the reason behind it. But it's been a big piece of work. People can still go to our old website or send things to our old email addresses, and it will automatically be redirected. So it's not to worry too much, that people can still get hold of us.
And finally, do you have people who, or if someone wanted to volunteer for you, I mean, if they want to come along and be part of the trust, can they do that?
Absolutely. We very dependent on volunteers. We have volunteers in the office. They run the advice centre. Our counselling service is volunteer counsellors that are training. We have volunteers that go to all the young carer clubs, all the cafes. But we do, because we're one of the sovereign charities of H for All, we do it all through a central volunteering hub, which is at H for All, and they will place volunteers. What that means is if there's a resident who wants to volunteer, they don't have to decide which charity. They can go to the hub, look at the types of roles that's available, and then they'll be supported to go to whichever charity, whether that's administration or therapies or whatever, that are best used by whichever charity, and that's for the whole voluntary sector. So it gives people a lot of options in terms of volunteering, but we're always grateful for volunteers.
So how many volunteers and staff do you have in total? Is there...
Staff-wise, we have 19 staff in Carers Trust Hillingdon. Not all of them full-time. I think there's about 13 full-time equivalents, some are part-time. We have 47 volunteers who provide so much extra capacity for support. So a member of staff running a carer cafe can have 2 volunteers with them, and they can support a lot more carers. So it gives us a huge opportunity to support more carers at the activities we do. And obviously our board of trustees are all volunteers as well, and they're my boss.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
And
it
and
is.
do you all fit in that office where you are in 126 High Street? Because I was in Uxbridge yesterday, and I went past to see where you were. Is it quite a narrow building? But we spread out about 3 years ago. So we used to just be the advice centre and then some small offices above it. But we were able to take on larger premises. And we now have a meeting room, a therapy room, counselling room, and bigger office space. So it's deceptive from the front. We go right sort of halfway back through Beasley's Yard at the side there. Yeah.
But we do also, Mark, try to provide services in the heart of communities, because not everybody can get to Uxbridge.
No.
So our carer cafes, for example, run from Northwood Hills right down to Hayes and Harlington. So we try to provide as much as we can out in communities as well.
Well, it's been lovely to talk to you today, and don't forget, we will be putting in all the information that Sally's been talking about, the links and stuff, onto our webpage so you can catch up again. Sally, I hope you'll come back to us and have another chat.
Please do.
And you'll be more than welcome.
Thank you very much. I'd be delighted, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you.
You're welcome. Right. That's Sally Chandler, the Chief Executive of the Hillingdon Trust. Carers Trust Hillingdon. I've been saying it correctly all day. And we'll invite you back onto the show, maybe in a couple of weeks or so, and or a couple of months to see how you're getting on.
I'm happy to come. Thank you very much, Mark.
91.8 Hayes FM.
Great West